Hi, friends. It's Joe Chadburn with the International Peace Network. I'm here today with my friend NeNe Mulhem. Welcome, NeNe.
Hello.
Yeah, she is my Palestinian figure skating friend. We met in an amazing way. It was on the Clubhouse app, and I think I was the sole Christian in the chat.
Oh man.
And you guys were just so gracious and kind. And from that point, we just established an online friendship. And Mark Zuckerberg decided that I needed to see tons of your posts repetitively, which is fine because the skating's great and all all your beautiful
Thanks.
Palestinian posts and just the information, and like I say, it's very, very substantive what you're sharing on social media. So it means a lot to me, and so I welcome that, and it's wonderful, and I
Thank
like to share
you.
those things with people. And just thank you for allowing me into your elder brother into your life, and just knowing you has really enriched me, and
Oh,
along with all of my Palestinian friends, and I just appreciate you. And if you're listening and you are a Palestinian sister or brother, and this resonates with you, and you would like for me to help you share your message, I would just want to give you, this is a space where you can share your voice freely and openly and share your message. And I'll do my very best to disseminate it as far and wide as possible. So without further ado, NeNe, would you just share a little bit about your background?
well, thank you first of all for having me. That was a very nice introduction. I'm humbled. I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story and my platform, and this platform, because yes, I'm Palestinian and I've been a little censored lately. So we'll start from the beginning. I was born here in Chicago. I'm Chicago baby through and through, South Side. Moved to the suburbs about 5 years old. Both my parents are Palestinian war refugees from the 67 war. My mom was born in Kuwait. My dad was born in Palestine. They met here in college. Both of them were in activism. So they really raised me to know my culture, to use my voice, and to understand what it means to be a Palestinian and the importance of it here in America. I was always a good student, never really into competitive sports. I tried. I found my passion in ice skating at 13 because it's an independent sport and that seemed to go with my personality. I've always been very independent. And yeah, I just took that through high school. I graduated in Victor J. Andrew in Tinley Park. My dreams were to go to art school, but I took a little different direction. I moved to Florida at 18 on my own. I was going to University of Tampa, but then enrolled in a community college because I chose not to stay on dorm. And my parents, being Muslim and Arab, were already a little worried of me going and living on my own all the way in Florida. So I unfortunately didn't get the loans co-signed, but proceeded with my dreams of living by the ocean. I also have a passion for the ocean. And I took a little break off of ice skating then. My plan was to get back at 19, but I kind of got lost in my studies in college and working and not living close to any rinks in Florida. Eventually, I transferred back here at 20 and 21-ish, enrolled in DePaul University and graduated with a degree in public relations and advertising, a minor in media relations and crisis management, and a certificate of leadership in the workplace. I've always worked hard, had 2 jobs since I was 13 at least. My father's a chef, so I kind of grew up in restaurants. That was most of my work experience until I was here at DePaul. And it's a service-based learning program there, so a lot of charity work incorporated into your studies, which is where I started volunteering at Rush Hospital as an integrated health expert. I was doing art and music therapy and planned to get back to skating around this time. I unfortunately was in a really bad car accident. All the doctors told me I couldn't skate anymore. The insurance companies pressured me to, treat different things. And yeah, I lost my way from skating for over a decade. In that time, I got my job at Transport Marketing Consultants, and that is a transportation and logistics agency, also owned by a Palestinian family. I've been with them for 13 years. I move freight. And in 2016, my mom and I started a luxury travel agency, a full service travel agency. That has been able to feed my other passions of travel, food, writing, and art. Because as you can imagine, trucking doesn't really do any of that, definitely doesn't relate to skating. During the pandemic, I moved finally back out on my own in 2020 to the city of Chicago and found myself in close proximity to Maggie Daly, Millennium. Just went out there one day and was surprised that I could still spin and jump. I got back on the ice ever since. So this is in 2020, and we're 3 years into some heavy, deep training. I'm revisiting my figure skating goals that I kind of lost track of, going to school and going through life experiences. And I'm back to be in it because my goal was to always be the first Palestinian Muslim skater in the Olympics. I really wanted to win some medals, but if I could just make it to the Olympics, I would have been happy. Now I don't know if that's where we're headed, but I'm definitely training to compete again. And I have always been active in the Palestinian cause, but in the last few years, ever since I finally visited Palestine in 2018, I've really turned up the heat on that and have been using my skating, hopefully as a channel to also raise awareness. And that's about it. I hope that wasn't too much.
No, that's great. And if I've heard you directly in the past with things that you've said, it seems like you're very open as well to training, encouraging, helping, especially young Palestinian women who are interested in figure skating into getting into it if they wanted to reach out to you.
Yes, I'm offering coaching now. At first, I was focused on just making sure that I was going to be able to handle getting back into this sport when I started again in 2020. I've been doing very well and increasing in my skills and have some time and slots open. So yes, for anyone that is interested, I really love to work with young women, but I am open to, males as well. I just like to provide an opportunity that may not be there as abundantly for young Palestinian girls or Muslim girls in this sport. One of them being that, Muslims sometimes, but now we're becoming more open. But when I first started, one of the things they always asked my dad was, are you going to let her skate in those little skirts? Are you going to so now we see there's a famous skater from Saudi Arabia who wears a hijab, and just different ways to enjoy this sport with still having respect to the religion. And I feel like I'm in a unique position to offer this awesome opportunity for other little girls that always wanted to dance or skate. And it's a great way to stay fit. And yes, I'm taking limited students now. So for anyone who's interested, maybe we can link my email later, but you can reach me at falahifarasha@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook, but definitely the email for, fastest response for lessons. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now I've noticed something amongst Palestinians throughout all the heartache since the Nakba and just the oppression, apartheid, and I know just longing to return to a free Palestine, or if you're not returning, just to know that there's a free Palestine for people to return to, and that is, in the midst of that, what do you attribute? Because you Palestinians are so just hospitable and kind and resilient and joyful. And I even see young Palestinian men being brutalized by Israelis, and they have they still have joy and a smile on their face, and they're so resilient and well educated. And what do you attribute that to?
First of all, thank you for those kind words. I do pride myself on my culture for those attributes. We call it the Palestinian passion, Palestinian persistence. For me personally, I feel like just from my grandparents instilling that in me at a young age. And then, of course, my parents and their story and just no. So I'm speaking for me personally, right? I'll try to answer for others. But for my personal story, like my passion and my persistence and my yearn to make people aware and to fight for our liberation comes from knowing what my grandparents and my parents went through. And then living here as an American and just being raised with that side of the world and just, a staunch belief in liberty and freedom and like you can do anything and you can, be anything. So for me personally, it started with my family just teaching me that from a young age and just instilling it in me, what it means to be Palestinian, what we went through, and to never forget. And I wish that I had the answer for like the men that you're referring to who just don't give up on fighting for freedom, no matter if they're left with nothing but rocks. I think it just comes down to when you think about your home, your family, your religion, like if you don't have these things, freedom of movement, freedom to just be human, I think it's just an innate thing to want to fight for that and to be so passionate about it because it's our very existence that we're protesting about, that we're trying to fight for. I mean, I don't know, Joe. That's a good question. I don't want to also like sound too cocky in answering that, right? And be like, because we're Palestinian and we're just the best. That's why we have that extra passion. No, I just think it's like you just grow up with a different worldview when from the beginning, like when I was going to school, just being told by a teacher at a young age in history class to correct myself, to call it Israel when I referred to when we were studying the Holy Land as Palestine. And when you face things like that at such a young age, it kind of just builds a fire in you to want to, make sure that your existence is respected and known and that we have equal rights. So yes. I hope that answered like as good as
it does.
You were looking for.
It does. And my faith leads me to believe that it's, all human beings are created in the image of Allah and he loves us. And I just believe that it's his grace that carries us through. It transcends just mere humanity. There's certain things that just kick in innately because we are his children that cause us to be resilient. I believe that, and I really see that in you, and I see that to me that is just Palestinian beauty, and it's really, let's say, represented through the Palestinian culture, and that's Palestinian Christians, Muslims, Palestinian atheist friends I have. It's just there. There's just a welcoming and just a spirit of hospitality and love and graciousness and wanting justice for all people because you've tasted of oppression, so you don't want others to taste that, and so you stand up against bullies and I really, really appreciate that. Yeah. And if anyone is watching or listening and wants to really connect with Palestinian Muslims, I go to Chicago every Thanksgiving. I go to American Muslims for Palestine convention, and they're such wonderful, beautiful people. And you would just melt in the hospitality and the joy and just the love when you see how families interact with one another. and how they interact with you, and how the Orthodox Jews there and other Christians will interact with you. So just putting a plug in for that with AMP. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, okay, NeNe. All right. So describe your active, well, tell me what does activism mean to you? And then tell me a little bit about your activism journey.
So activism to me means bringing awareness to the Palestinian cause, to what is happening in Palestine, to fighting for equal rights for all Palestinians, especially the ones that are in the Holy Land who have next to no rights now, and to just make people understand how we're not so different, and we come in all shades and religions, like you said, and kinds. Like, we are not the stereotype that the mainstream media portrayed ever since 9/11 and before, of Muslim terrorists. There are Christian Palestinians, there are atheist Palestinians, and there are mixed Palestinians who are mixed of different races, and we all feel the same. So in my activism efforts, I just want people to see more people like me, so they can relate and maybe listen more about what exactly we're fighting for, and that it's not very different from what Americans are here fighting for today, with freedom of speech and different rights that we feel are being targeted. My activism journey started again when I was very young, because my mom was very active. She was a Depka dancer, actually. She went to UIC. And you know what Depka is, Joe, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Palestinian dance. So she's pretty good at it. She led a lot of them. My dad went to Daly, and he was a protest organizer. They met during different events. So it's like, I'm proud of that. I am a product of Palestinian love, truly, because they met fighting for the cause in the same city. They came from the same place. And then when they had me, you know, it was just mandatory to be raised to know that I was Palestinian and where I came from, and that there is maybe more purpose in my life than to just make a lot of money in this amazing country, or to just have children. Yes, having children is part of it, right? We want to breed to grow our race, but they were just very influential in making sure that I knew that I had a voice in this country, unlike who we left behind in Palestine, that I had to use it, and that there was something bigger than just myself and our little nuclear family. I'm very thankful for that. So it started there. My mom worked for a gentleman named Mahmoud Naji. God rest his soul. He started the United Holy Land Foundation. He's technically a second, third cousin, but he's so much older than me. He's like my uncle. His daughter was actually just here training with me. Or his granddaughter, she slept over. And I would spend days in his office when my mom was working, and just being around him, very Palestinian proud man, and started one of the largest charities for Palestinian students primarily. My activism has been instilled in me since then. And then when we moved to Tinley from the city, I was one of the first Arabs to move to the area. I just felt a need to it was like a necessity for me to represent who Palestinians were, because it was so foreign to this area that we moved. There were a couple others, but where I grew up in Tinley, most Arabs at the time really trying to assimilate. And some of us stayed pretty vocal and true to our identities, but it wasn't until maybe a generation later that you see more of like a little Palestine developing in that community and whatnot. I wish I had more of that when I was growing up. My life would have been a lot easier. But yeah, just living here in the Chicagoland area, you know, we're a very active city. My parents would take me to different events. that they were participating in and that our family was participating in, whether it was functions where we had discussions and meals or protests or entertainment, events with DEPCA and different dances. And then, I was very vocal in high school, middle school, obviously. That's when 9/11 happened and the Iraq war and everything. So it got a little crazy during that time. And I felt it was a responsibility of mine to be very vocal and to give a voice, an American voice, because at that time it was pretty rare. You barely saw that. When I went into college, it started to gain some speed because, all of us, when we enter that world, it seems to be where we meet with other networks and communities that are fighting for the same causes. It's a little easier to connect with others like myself. And I would say when I moved back to Chicago is when I really started getting more active, because we all know SJP has chapter at DePaul. They're very active. I had some speaking opportunities at Daily Plaza. So, a lot of people would come out and protest or want to be involved, but not everyone was brave enough to speak in front of the cameras and give speeches. And I took those opportunities whenever I could find them. And then when I graduated, it was my goal for a very long time to go to Palestine. And I finally got that opportunity in 2018. I worked for like 5 years to save money, to just be able to also take my dad and my brother. My brother had never been. My dad hadn't been there in 30 plus years. So my goal was to just reunite my dad with his homeland and show my brother how I was raised, because he was raised very different. And it was very important for me to make sure that he was also as culturally connected as myself. And when we went on that trip, it was just life-changing. It was my firsthand experience of truly experiencing what it means to be a Palestinian in the Holy Land, and to just everything that we're fighting for. I thought I knew, and I knew I was fighting for something just and something right, but that just further affirmed everything I was doing. While it gave me more of a sense of purpose, it also kind of confused me. Which direction do I go? Because it was so overwhelming. And like, how do we tackle this problem? It's even bigger than I expected. And because I'm an American, I didn't expect to experience some of the things that I experienced. So it was really eye-opening. And ever since then, and then connecting with my relatives who I'd never met, who were living as war refugees in Jordan, in El Zarqa, which most people don't know unless you are Palestinian or Jordanian. That's like a slum. It is pretty bad over there. And then going to Palestine and seeing how my father's only sister left living there, was living, and her family, I just had an even more of a desire. I had a stronger flame now to just go at high speed for this, because now it was really personal. It's always been personal, but now that I've like gotten close with my cousins overseas and see what they go through, it just made me want to fight that much more. And I was also stopped from visiting Gaza, any charities, any universities. I was threatened by Israel and told that I would never be allowed back in the country if I did any of that. And I didn't want to jeopardize my brother and my father's safety and, make their trip horrible. So I didn't. I had many plans to. And when I returned, I just went even harder. I've always been involved in PCRF and different charities, but I knew that I needed to take whatever I learned in school and in my businesses and even further apply it to raise more money, to raise more awareness, to do whatever I could to make people understand what I saw when I was there, and to just not slow down, to only add more steam, because I also see a shift, a change in the dynamics. Like, more people are starting to listen to us and understand. So, yeah, that's been kind of my activism journey. And when I got back, let me just add this, fast forward to 2020, when I started skating and getting so much attention for it, I realized that this is a unique way that I can probably get people's attention and maybe put Palestine on the map in some places. And yeah, I've been active also through my skating. I worked with running refugees, raised a few thousand to rebuild homes in Gaza. I hope to have more opportunities like that, where I can spread awareness and raise money for charity in Palestine through my skating. Might not get the gold medal at the Olympics, but anything we can do where people know that we exist and also in their rinks is just a win for me, because I feel my generation and the future generations are changing the tide and getting us closer. So that's my
beautiful.
little story. Thank you.
That's beautiful. So you saw the apartheid, the oppression, the checkpoints up close and personal.
Yeah. I saw it just from trying to enter. We did the traditional way on land in Jordan, and it started there. So I didn't fly in. I went to Jordan first, and we went through the bridge, they call it. And you've probably seen pictures of what it looks like at the border here in the US and different refugee crises around the world. That was my first experience in something like that I've seen on TV and in the news. And it was crazy. We were there for several hours, packed like tuna in a can, nowhere to sit. Everyone's hot. We're just stopped. They're not opening the gates. There's no updates. People are like selling each other water in the line and everything and pushing each other. And it was just intense. So this is called a checkpoint to get into Palestine. Then when we got in, they separated me from my father and my brother. Now I had been pretty active before I went. So I had some advice from fellow Palestinians to delete all my social media, to not be active when I'm out there, which I felt like kind of defeats the purpose. But I was just warned to be quiet. And I did clean up my social media. I didn't delete everything. I deleted some. But I think that's maybe where it stemmed from, because I'm also very vocal on there. As you know, a lot of Palestinians follow some rules. Like, I was told for a long time not to say Zionist, to refer to them as the occupation. And I very loudly and proudly been calling them Zionist terrorists. So I think they were kind of ready for me. They separate, but to the degree that things happen just shocked me. I'm like, I'm just this little person. Like, who am I? I don't have a lot of money. I'm not a big celebrity, but I guess they take it pretty serious. They separated me from my dad and my brother. They took my phone. They completely disassembled it. When they gave it back to me, I can tell that they like took the entire back off and everything. Mind you, I've already had plans to get a burner phone. I had the same Palestinians that gave me the tips of how to speak, telling me to not even use my phone, to get a throwaway phone. And I done that in Jordan already. So when they gave me back my phone, I thought I was going to be out. I thought I was going to be reunited with my dad and my brother. No, they sat me on some chairs and had me pretty much just watch all the other Americans, all the other foreigners go through security like nothing. They took my dad and my brother into another room. They interrogated them with other Palestinians, mostly men. And then they let my brother and my dad out of the room Now we're going on maybe 8 hours at the checkpoint. No food, no water, just one water fountain. And when they let my brother and my father out, they said, okay, they can go past the ropes, which takes you to where you wait for the buses and the cabs. But they didn't want to go without me. And they said, well, you can't wait for her. You have to go. Or if you wait and she doesn't get let through, you're not going to be able to go through. And my dad really didn't want to go through, but I yelled at him too, because he's also diabetic and there was nothing for him to eat here. Yeah. And while he was in the room, I tried to stop a bunch of employees and tell them, like, hey, my dad is diabetic. He has to take his medicine. He has to eat. Like, how much longer is this going to be? I don't care how long you guys hold me, but what's going on with my dad and my brother? Like, I'm an American. I also went on a luxury travel itinerary. My mom and I own a luxury travel agency. So I had her put together a whole itinerary where we actually like did some work in Jordan. I went to a nice hotel. So just so that they see, because it was recommended that well, first of all, they require you to submit one. And I just really made it like travel friendly. So they see like I'm coming there for leisure and not to cause trouble, as they call it. I still had intentions to visit charities that I worked with and universities, but I tried to make it look like I'm just coming to see my family and for work. And they still gave me a hard time. And I tried to like throw the weight of our company around and say that, like, listen, I'm in travel. We have a company. We are here for business and to visit family. I'm not sure what this is all about, but if you want to keep me and question me, that's fine. But my dad, like, for health reasons, needs to go through. And they just many times would completely just not even acknowledge me, like not even answer back, like I'm not a human. Sometimes they'd like look at me and then you just keep walking. And one lady who was probably like a cleaning lady or something, no one important, was like, I see what I can do, but you're going to have to wait. I'm like, well, how much longer am I going to have to wait? Because now the checkpoint's almost clear. And yes, some of the soldiers just laughed at me when I asked for help. So this was also enraging me. And they kind of do this on purpose. They want to get you mad, so you react. And everyone warned me of that. So I was trying really hard to not do that. Finally, when they let my dad and my brother out of the room, I got him to agree to go past the ropes, but they made it very clear, like, once you pass the ropes, you can't come back. So they took him. They made me wait at that checkpoint till literally like past closing, to where it was only the cleaning lady and a couple soldiers walking around. And they didn't even interrogate me too much at that point. Like when I first came and they took my phone, they interrogated me a lot, but it wasn't in a private room like my brother and my dad just yet. Yeah. So I thought, like, okay, what's going on? Like, it's closing now. No one has any questions for me. We're done. But no, they did have more questions. Then they did take me into the private room when I asked about 3 more times, like, what am I going to spend the night here? It looks like no one is here. All the bus is probably gone. Do we even have a cab to get to where we need to get to in Palestine? Because you wanted to make it through the checkpoints to make sure that you got on the bus. And, you know, I've never been here, so my mind's all over the place. They took me into a room. I am one female, 12 soldiers, all fully armed, proceeded to interrogate me with the same questions that they asked me when they took my phone, which was, why are you here? What are you going to see? And I'm like, you have my itinerary. Their biggest thing, let me back it up a second. They interrogated me on family that I've never met. I was warned about that. Do you know this person? What about this person? And I'm like, no, I don't know these people. I can only answer for some family members, but I don't know their history, like what they're doing. Like, that's why I'm here, to get to know them. And some of the names they asked, I didn't know. But then their big thing was, why aren't you going to Israel? Why are you only going to the West Bank? And I said, because I have no business to do in Israel. I'm only here for a couple days. I spent most of my time in Jordan. I want to spend as much time with my family as I can and seeing the Palestinian side. And they didn't like that. They wanted me to spend my money in the Israel side. When I first came and they took my phone, and the lady asked me that question. She was a little kinder. She was like, well, you should check it out. It's really nice. You should think about it. But by the time that I was in the room with the soldiers, it was more like, what are you really up to that you don't want to go to the Israeli side? Why don't you like that side? Why? And just trying to get some answer out of me that I wasn't going to give them. I just stuck to my guns of, I'm sticking to the West Bank side. I will not be going to the Israeli side. I'm going to this aunt's house and this aunt's house, and that's it. And then they brought up Gaza and charities and whatnot. And they said, we're going to let you through, but we're going to tell you one thing. You better not try to go to Gaza. You better not talk to any charities. You better not visit one university. And you better stay off of social media. If you break any of those rules, we will arrest you. We will kick you out. You will not be allowed back in this country. And I was like, okay. I wanted to say so many things, but I knew, like, just get me out of there. Also, in the back of my mind, I'm one woman in a room with 12 men fully armed and like unnecessarily armed. Like one AK-47 or one Uzi is enough. They had multiple assault rifles and weapons. I'm just like, okay, I won't. Let me out of here. So they let us out. I'm reunited with my father and my brother outside. I have footage of this. I have pictures of like the empty checkpoint, and all the buses were gone. Our only option was a cab for $300. They told us we could wait an extra hour or something. Another bus was there, but they were waiting to see if they could fix the AC, so they weren't running it yet. We chose to take that bus. They did end up running it, but we had no AC.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was my first taste of the like apartheid and everything, because like I said, when I'm just sitting on those chairs, it was a total of 12 and a half hours I was there. Just watching all the other Americans, all the other foreigners go right through. But I was stopped and interrogated and questioned like a criminal. And yeah, and then our mode of transportation after that, even though we had money, no, we were stuck with the bus that had no AC. And yeah, after that, just for the next 2 days, anything we wanted to do, whether we were going from my aunt's to Al-Aqsa Mosque, which was a 15-minute drive, we couldn't get there in 15 minutes. It was 2.5 hours. We could only go a certain way and through various checkpoints. And when we left, I couldn't take a cab. Only the Jews could take a cab. We had to take a bus. And it reminded me so much of like the days here in the US when, you know, only Black people could take this mode of transportation and I hate to compare it to that. I don't, you know, but I'm just stating the facts of when we were there. Like, what is that in 2018 as an American? You mean I can't take a cab because I'm not Jewish? What?
Well, the crazy thing, this is like a bizarro world, you know, parallel universe thing, because here's the thing. I mean, you've got Palestinians who live in Palestine who need cancer treatment or you know, or are literally dying and need to get to a hospital and aren't allowed access and can't go, you know, to certain places, and they're encouraging you to go visit, you know, and you know, bring your money and whatever. That's crazy. And you know, you talk about cleaning your phone, cleaning it of what? Truth, you know, exposing their deeds. That's it. They just didn't want their deeds exposed.
How about this, Joe? Not to go off on a tangent, but just a side note of that phone story. When I returned to the States, my phone wasn't working properly. I went to turn it back on. It was giving me like an alert I've never seen before. I Googled different things to do. I tried restarting it. I physically went to T-Mobile and paid them like, I don't know, almost $200 for like a diagnostic, whatever, reset. And the guy called me to come get my phone. And when he gave it to me, he was like, I have never seen anything like this in my life. He's like, I don't know what happened to your phone. I didn't tell him, by the way, the Israeli government took it and this and that.
Yeah.
I just told him I went out of town. Ever since I came back, it's not working right, that I used a burner phone when I was overseas. And he's like, I've tried everything. I've called this person for help. I've done this, I've done that. And he's like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to just get a new phone. I was so pissed. Like, my phone was not that old. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, so did they like bug it to watch me when I came back here? Like, what is this? It was just crazy. And then when I told him what had happened on my trip, he was like, wow. Like, he like confirmed that we're not always conspiracy minded when we think these things. Everyone likes to like talk smack like that when us Palestinians say, oh, I'm being censored. Oh, they're watching me. Oh, they're this and that. And then you have an experience like that. And like the professional that was working on the device is like, oh no, that government did something to your phone. Like there's nothing I could do to this.
Well, if you look at it, I'm not saying this was used on it, but you know, the Israelis did invent Pegasus, which is the worst surveillance, the most invasive, and it was directly responsible. It was used in the butchering of Jamal Khashoggi. So, and for other nefarious reasons, and there's governments, including ours, that have been interested in that software. So, I mean,
and they have more of it.
Google it, Pegasus,
and they've been developing more surveillance software that we've been using. Everything from like the eye recognition, the global ID thing they're working on. By the way, that was my first experience with it there in Israel. So when I left, I was trying to leave via the airport. And for the first time, I've traveled a lot. I'm a travel baby. I had never been somewhere where they were like, all right, everyone get in this line. We're going to scan your eyes. It's global ID. If you don't have one, you better get one because it's going to become mandatory soon. I was like, what is this? And my first experience was seeing it in Israel. And now it's, you know, coming more commonplace.
That's wild. Well, thanks for giving us kind of a feel for what it was like. And I know people have really, really horrific stories of seeing people just being killed and houses being bulldozed and land being stolen at gunpoint with the military, you know, supporting them, stealing houses that have been in families for, you know, some literally land for thousands of years. So it's man, it's just sad, and I hate that you had to go through that.
It's okay. I hate that my fellow Palestinians have to go through it. What I went through is nothing. Like
they deal with it every day. Yeah,
right. I imagine like what you said, going to get treatment and things like that. Yes, Palestinians die because they're unable to go get treatment that they need, especially in Gaza. They need to be able to come up to Ramallah and different places that have the technology, and they're not allowed to. Children, like, why? Because they're terrorists. That's when this was all happening to me. That's what started racing through my mind. Like, okay, if this is happening to me, what if someone who needs to do this? They don't have 2 hours to waste at a checkpoint. It was ridiculous.
And you probably had somewhat of, and I'm just saying, because of your American citizenship, you probably were not, you weren't treated like the average Palestinian. You would have been treated much worse, I'm sure, had you not been an American citizen.
Yeah, I mean, I still think I got probably some of the worst treatment out of all the American citizens I've met, because they told me when I was there, many of my relatives, like when we were going to leave, my aunt was like, you don't need to leave that early. And I said, we're going to pass 2 checkpoints on the way to the airport. And she's like, they never stop you at this one at this time. And that's why I got you this driver. So she was actually like cool with some of the checkpoint soldiers. And she was like, if they know you're my granddaughter and you have this driver, they won't. And I was like, you don't know me. I'm telling you. I bet you they will. And the family was fighting over it because she wanted us to stay longer. And I told my dad, I don't care who's mad. It's like big in our culture, like not have your aunts or uncles mad at you. And like, I was like, listen, I'm not getting stuck in this country, like with these crazy Zionists. Like I need to go home. So we are going to leave early, and that's it. And thank God we did. We got stopped at both. I just want to give you this little side story because this one pertains to my little brother, who is not like me. his social media presence is his music. And it's not focused on bringing awareness to Palestine, although he very proudly does. He's like a rapper and a singer, and he's like a normal American kid. He even looks white. You wouldn't even think he's Arab. And he doesn't even speak Arabic, okay? He barely understands it. So I had to always be next to him. And that's something that made me nervous, is when we were separating, he had to deal with the soldiers. I was okay at the first checkpoint because my dad was with him. But when we were going home in the final one, they separated us three from each other. So he didn't have my dad and he didn't have me. So my brother's account of what happened, he's, getting his bags checked, everything. They're asking him things. And the soldier went to go give him back his bag and dropped something. And when my brother went to go pick it up, the soldier just like pointed his gun in his face to kind of like mess with him. And preface that with the questions. So the first questions they asked him were, what did you come here for? How come you didn't go to the Israel side? And they're asking him in Arabic, and he's asking them, please speak English, that he doesn't speak Arabic. And he said, why don't you speak Arabic? He said, can you please speak English? Then he said in English, why don't you speak Arabic? He's like, because I don't. He's like, are you lying to me? And he's like, no. He's like, but your name is Ahmed Hassan Milham, right? And he said, yes. So my brother is named after my grandfather, who was a major fighter. Like he fought in wars against Israelis. So that's also like probably a red flag. But they were just drilling him like, they didn't understand like how he was so like he was with me and like my dad, but he was so like different. They're just like, my brother and I have the answers they were looking for, and he's getting a little annoyed, but he knew he had to keep his cool. So the soldier like went to hand him his bag or something, and he purposely dropped it. So my brother had to pick it up right at his boots. And when he was picking it up, he's just like pointing the Uzi in his face. Like he lowered it and pointed it in his face. And my brother started trembling and shaking. And the soldier's like, why are you shaking? Why are you getting nervous? And my brother's not answering him. So he got more aggressive. He put it in his face again. He's like, I asked you a question. What are you so nervous about? And my brother's like, well, respectfully, you have an Uzi in my face. And he's like, yeah. And like, that's it, And the soldier was like, go to that side. Like, didn't mess with him after that. But I was just like, what the fuck? Like anything. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go here. But I'm just like, even though hearing it after the fact, like it just made me sick to my stomach. Like, what if that gun went off? Like what? And what were you what if my brother did lose his cool? Cause he kind of has a little temper too. And I don't know, man. I was just like, that could have been really bad. And for what? Like he went through his stuff and he's like a normal American kid. Like he's just wearing his Dre Beats headphones and like, looking
and
really.
And he's leaving the country. I mean, are you scared of him doing something to the United States where he already lives? I mean, he's leaving the country. If he hasn't, if you haven't found anything on his person that belongs to you, that's just straight harassment is all that is.
And they did it. They separated from my dad to purposely intimidate him. That's my dad crazy. Was like, hey, can he stay with me? Like, I know you need to take my daughter separate because she's a woman, and the thing is where they take me to a tent where it's all men again, like no women. I'm like, I was kind of scared at that point. I'm not going to lie. I didn't show it to them, but it's like 3 a.m. I'm with these jerks. Like they're just like not nice to me. Now I'm not going to lie. When we went to Al-Aqsa, there were some nice soldiers. There are some people who are drafted in Israel because it's a mandatory draft that don't want to do it. A majority of them did not treat me that way. At this checkpoint, the men that I was once again found alone in a room with, fully armed, interrogating me. This was even scarier because at least at the checkpoint, there was a lot of people, at the first checkpoint entering the country, there's a lot of people around, kind of, not when they put me in a room, but in the general vicinity. Here, we're like on a road, it's 3 a.m. My dad and my brother are in a tent. I'm in this, I don't know what's going to happen. but yeah, I'm happy I didn't listen to my aunt. I knew better, leave earlier. And yeah, so it was pretty crazy. That was my little taste of what it's like to live there being Palestinian. I can't imagine imagine if you're my brother and like that happened to you on the daily. Eventually a young man is going to snap. Eventually he's going to react when he's constantly harassed.
Well, it's happening day after day after day. And I mean, especially if you're a little kid and you've had your house broken into at 2 a.m. and people ransacking everything, you know, and you're just used to just when that oppression is there the whole time. I understand how it works on, well, I don't fully understand, but I can empathize with, just as being human, that would work on anybody's psyche in the, you know, in a bad way. That could have some definitely bad effects there. Wow. Thanks for just kind of letting us into your world and your stories here. Now, if you have anything else you'd like to share about the skating, we can talk about that. But I also want to, we did kind of cover that. But what would you like for more than anything, you know, for the viewers and listeners to take away from our little time together today?
There's like so much, but most important, I want them to understand that when they see us fighting for our cause, that it's not another trend. I know lately we have a lot of different opinions with what's been going on with BLM and trans people and the different movements out there. And like, we have been fighting for our freedom since the Nakba, like since this is an ongoing Nakba actually, but since 1948, like this is nothing new. You're hearing about it more now because of social media, because of the change in the tide, I'd like to believe. But this is a legit cause that is truly just fighting for the same freedoms that we have here in the United States that we often take for granted. And I want people to just understand that this isn't something to divide or to, you know, for clout, or it's truly because there are people, our family, our ancestors living in apartheid and in conditions that are inhumane and with no freedom of movement, no freedom of speech, no freedom to no right to bear arms. Just all of these things that here in America we're allowed to do, but in Palestine, only the Israelis are allowed to do. So it's, you know, important. I think people are starting to understand that more. People who knew nothing about our cause, they're starting to believe it. They're starting to see the facts and the truth. But also I want them to understand how, even if they're just like, well, what do we care? We don't care about Palestine. We care about here. Like I hear that a lot, right? Well, you should care because we are the guinea pigs. We are the testing zone. Like you said, surveillance, like that was tested on us first before it's being unleashed here in America. Different things that they're practicing there, we can anticipate to start happening here because the Israelis and American politics are so intertwined. And you
can't just say over there, because it's not just over there, it's over here. There are homeless people. There is, I mean, there's some horrible things happening here with poverty and homelessness and hunger and just some serious problems. And at the same time, we are sending, over $10 million every day to that apartheid regime, over 3.8 billion a year. This is a blank check. And a lot of these folks, you can convert to Judaism, be from New Jersey, and then have a right to return, go live on stolen land or go steal some with military thugs right there with you, armed military thugs right there with you. You can steal. You can also get pretty much a free education, subsidized housing, if not free housing. So this is horrendous what is happening, and what's happening with U.S. tax dollars. You look at inflation, everything that's happening here. And if it was that we were just, helping somebody, well, why aren't we helping people in Africa? Why aren't we helping people in the Democratic Republic of the Congo? Why aren't we helping, there's so many causes that we could be helping around the world if it's humanitarian. This is not humanitarian. This is all about power and oil and some other things. And it's just, and I say, it's ugly. So it's over there, but it does affect our quality of life here. And you're looking at the debt ceiling. So I'm going off on a tangent now.
But that's exactly what I was getting at.
Talking about here, all of our problems, and you're just stroking a check to an apartheid regime is exactly what you're doing to a fascist state, pretending to be a democracy, with liberty and justice for all. And it is not, okay? And if Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu called it apartheid, I think they know apartheid better than any talking head in the U.S. media or any, Hasbara person from the regime. So that's man.
And it's not a tangent. That's what I was getting at. It's most important for the American public to know how much we're sending there and what they really stand for and the gravity of the problems we have here. Like, I don't think if all conservatives from my generation at least knew, because I see it when I educate them, and I'm, now being more open-minded to have conversations with these people. I don't think they would stand with Israel if they knew the truth, because I've already been able to change the perception of quite a few. So being in trucking, as you can imagine, there's a lot of conservative base there. Just because of how I post, talking about freedom of speech and mainstream media cover-ups, I've attracted a large conservative following the last couple years. So now, when I was younger, I could never have a conversation with these people. It would always turn into them calling me something racist. But now we have great dialogue. We debate a little bit. They might say some microaggressive things that piss me off, but I've learned how to push through that part of the conversation to get to the meat, which is to educate them that, okay, you stand for Israel, so you are a socialist. I thought you're not a socialist. So you stand for an American here, going over there, taking my family's land and home, getting free education, free healthcare, free housing when they squat in our home. Like, what do you mean you stand for Israel? Like, they don't believe in a democracy. Are you really okay with sending this much money there every day? And conservatives are capitalists and they're very financial minded, or finance minded. So when you break down the money to them, now you got their attention too. Like, they knew they were giving them all this money and they thought it was like for military allies and whatever, but now you see more and more conservatives that are like, get us the hell out of the Middle East. What are we doing there? So why do we need allies in Israel to fight these unviable wars that I would argue Israel started all of them, and they just tricked America into funding it. Again, because Zionism is so intertwined here with our politics. So that's another thing that I want people to take away from this. It's like, this is much bigger than just the Palestinian cause. But yes, it's personal for me. So that's where I'm most vocal on it. But if people really sat for a second and looked at whatever state they live in, like, it is crazy how this country is so involved. It has so much control over our legislation, over consequences that can happen here. So one thing I want to make sure to bring to everyone's attention, being that I live here in Illinois, and because I'm going to be doing more work on it moving forward. So we all know about BDS. There is a committee here in Illinois called the Illinois Investment Policy Board, for example. A few states have these committees and boards. They're put together by our state governments, our local governments. And if you look up the names of the people and their backgrounds, they're like almost all Zionists. And these boards are put together to combat anti-Semitism or anti-Israeli actions. So the Illinois Investment Policy Board, for example, can punish a business for being BDS vocal, for being anti-Israel. They can literally shut you down or, serve consequences.
It's really for being pro-human rights. If you're pro-human rights,
right.
they're going to shut you down.
Or they can fight for consequences, fines, different things like that. A similar committee a few years ago, for example, was formed in Arkansas and tried to take down a news publication, which was not Palestinian. They just reported on a Palestinian. I think it was a teacher or something like that who was getting suspended or fired. But the news publication is who that committee was going after. And they held their ground. They took them to court. And the judge ruled that the news publication was not guilty, that they were allowed to, run that piece. This committee wanted them to remove that piece, saying that it was anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli, whatever, and, promoting this pro-Palestinian. And the news publication refused. They were like, no, it's freedom of speech. We're reporting on the story. And they actually won. So what I want people to take away from this is, one, be aware that these committees already exist and they're forming more, especially in Florida. And we know now of one here in Illinois. And that you have the chance to do something about it. Just like our village board meetings that you can attend for your local governments, you can attend meetings that these committees have. And that's what I plan to do more of in the future. And you can speak out against what they're doing. And, and from there, we just make more noise and see where that takes us. But we can't take our foot off the gas on doing that, because we already see some judges ruling in the favor of different Palestinians across the country who have been fighting against cases like this, whether they were, professors or had a business. And some of them aren't winning, and it's kind of scary, which is why we need to be aware of these committees. But you would have never known, right? Illinois Investment Policy Board. Does that scream Israel to you? No. So it took me a lot of research to discover that, but look it up.
It's just like Anti-Defamation League, and there's always a name that disguises things. And,
and their cover is that they were mainly formed to monitor and prohibit business dealings with countries that were sanctioned or labeled as terrorists or whatever. So like Iran, Sudan, things like that. But then they added the part about Israel in there. Oh, and by the way, this committee is going to oversee all businesses in Illinois. And if they are pro BDS, you're breaking the rules in this state, I guess.
And then you're looking at politicians too, who are making money hand over fist, and campaign financing from AIPAC, Kufi. I mean, you talk about foreign election interference. It happens here, and they should not be able. No foreign government.
AIPAC
I don't care
is
who they
one.
are. I'm Portuguese and Italian. I don't want Portugal or Italy to affect U.S. policy or elections. They have no business doing it. And the hypocrisy is it's absolutely mind-boggling. But when you look at corruption combined with religious superstition and really, really bad theology and eschatology and brainwashing and just the propaganda that's been passed down through the educational system, the media, all through. But it's no wonder we are where we are. But again, the tide is turning. Social media has changed things, and people, this younger generation especially, are, I believe, awakening to the truth, and they want their brothers and sisters that live in this world, regardless of what their skin looks like, regardless of their religion, regardless, of anything. If they are human beings, they want them to be treated humanely. They want them to be treated with love and kindness, just as they would want to be treated. And let's say that's it. If you wouldn't do it to your next door neighbor, why is it okay to do it to somebody who's 5,000 miles away? It's never right. Oppression is never right. Apartheid is never right. Ethnic cleansing is never
Mhm.
right. So to speak up
And
against those things is, to me, you know, you are on the side of justice and of love.
thank you.
Yes, yes. Um,
I just
okay.
wanted to add to the APEC thing. That's the one last thing I want people to take away.
Yeah.
Our elections, if you believe they were stolen during Trump's reign, have been stolen way before his reign by APEC. So if you have a problem with Russia or China or anyone else in our elections, I encourage you to do more research into APEC and to see the origins of where this election fraud is really coming from in this country. It's been something we've been dealing with for a long time, and it's why I identify as a strong independent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was just my little note there.
I think strong independence, a very good description of you. So yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, my sister. Wow.
My brother.
This has been so wonderful. Again, let's do it again sometime as we'll get together and find some topics, or just something to hone in on. I think people probably be interested. We could probably devote an entire time to how to get involved at the local level, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
Maybe go through the ins and outs, and maybe have some graphics and some links
Sure.
and stuff like that. So I'm going to put this this interview up on the International Peace Network, and I'll make sure and get
Cool.
your information too, so people can contact you, whether it's for figure
Skating
skating or
lessons.
activism, skating lessons, whatever they would like to do. We can do that. And we'll have links for on
Yes.
Facebook, YouTube,
Anyone
all of that.
anyone who is looking to donate to people in need in Palestine, I'm connected with people on the ground, with trustworthy individuals. If you're concerned about, all these Facebook posts and charities, please get in contact with me and I will connect you with the cause that relates to your heart, and that will go to the right place. So wanted to also put that in there as well.
All right, NeNe. Appreciate you so much, sis. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Have
All
a good
right.
day. Thank
Yes,
you for this
ma'am.
opportunity.
You too. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.